Oh, kanta. Let's talk about some nerdy shit. Choosing the wrong render program doesn't just cost money. It costs weeks of relearning software, YouTube tutorials that somehow take 3 hours to explain a button, and client presentations that look like they escaped from 2019. The good news is that in 2026, the choice between Inkscape, Lumion, and Twinmotion is actually much simpler than most people make it sound. Despite what the benchmark warriors and Reddit experts would have you believe, the question isn't which renderer is objectively best. It's which one is least likely to make you question your career choice. Render programs, finding the least annoying workflow. All three have evolved significantly over the last few years. The visual quality gap has narrowed to the point where most clients won't notice the difference anyway. Your client is busy asking whether the kitchen island can be a little more open. They're not comparing global illumination. The real difference comes down to workflow cost and what kind of output you're actually creating. And that's where things get interesting. Before comparing software, let's eliminate 90% of the internet discussion. There are only 3 factors that really matter: what software you model in, what type of output you need, and how much money you're willing to spend. Everything else is mostly noise. If your entire office lives inside Revit and updates the model 20 times a day, your renderer needs to play nicely with that. If you're creating competition images designed to emotionally manipulate a jury into loving your project, that is a different requirement. And if you're a student surviving on instant noodles and optimism, budget suddenly becomes very important. Host software compatibility is usually the first filter. Inkscape works directly inside Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, Archicad, and Vectorworks. No exporting, no importing, no sacrificial rituals. Lumion is a standalone application. You export your model, import it, and then work there. LiveSync helps, but it's still a separate program. Twinmotion sits somewhere in the middle. Direct links exist for Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, and Archicad, but the process has slightly more friction than Inkscape. Not enough to be a deal breaker, just enough to occasionally annoy you. Then comes output. Do you need still images, walkthrough videos, VR presentations, an interactive digital twin that makes you sound important in meetings? Different tools excel at different things. And finally, pricing. Because unfortunately, software companies enjoy money.
If you can't give us some financial support, okay.
Inkscape costs roughly €539 per seat annually. Lumion sits around €999 per seat annually. Twinmotion remains free for individuals and smaller studios earning under $1 million annually, making it the only renderer in this comparison with a genuine free entry point. Inkscape is the renderer for architects who don't want rendering to become a second career. Its greatest strength is simple. You stay inside your BIM software, open Revit, press the Inkscape button, done. The render updates live as you design. Move a wall, renderer updates. Change a material, renderer updates. Accidentally ruin the design, renderer updates. This sounds boring until you spend hours exporting and re-importing models in other softwares. The live connection fundamentally changes client meetings. You can make design changes while the client watches, which is both powerful and terrifying. Inkscape is also arguably the easiest VR solution in architecture. One click, headset on, clients walk through the building. No complicated setup, no engineering degree required. Recent version introduced AI denoising and significantly improved sky systems, helping close the quality gap between its competitors. The renders today look substantially better than they did a few years ago. But Inkscape isn't perfect. Its asset library is relatively small compared to Lumion. If you're trying to create a bustling city scene full of animated people, vehicles, landscape, and enough entourage to populate a small country, you'll start feeling those limitations. Animation tools are also fairly basic. You can create walkthroughs, you can create fly-throughs, but if you're trying to direct the next architectural blockbuster, you're probably using the wrong tool. For BIM-heavy practices, though, Inkscape remains incredibly difficult to beat. Lumion is what happens when somebody asks, what if we made rendering easy but also ridiculously pretty? Its biggest strength is visual polish. Out of the box, Lumion consistently produces some of the most attractive images with the least amount of technical effort. And a huge part of that comes from its asset library. Over 6.5k objects, people, cars, trees, plants, furniture, weather effects, basically everything except your rent money this month. Drop a model into Lumion, populate the scene, adjust the sky, and you're already halfway towards something presentation worthy. Where Lumion really shines is atmosphere. Rain, fog, golden hour, snow, dramatic lighting. The software practically begs you to create architecture during sunset, because apparently no building has ever existed at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Recent versions added AI-powered material recognition that automatically assigns materials during import, reducing setup time significantly. The downside: workflow. Because Lumion is still a separate application, when major design changes happen, you're exporting, importing, syncing, and occasionally negotiating with the software. And then there's the price. At roughly €999 annually per seat, Lumion is the most expensive option here. For some big firms, that's completely justified. For students, just set your wallet on fire. You'll get the same experience. Twinmotion occupies a very strange position. It's simultaneously the cheapest option and potentially the most powerful. Thanks to Epic Games, Twinmotion runs on Unreal Engine 5. That means access to things like Lumen Global Illumination and Nanite Geometry Handling. Fancy technical terms that basically translate into it looks really good. And the most important feature, the Unreal Engine handoff. Twinmotion is the only renderer here that provides a realistic path towards fully interactive experiences. One client's opening doors, changing materials, walking through a digital twin, Twinmotion gives you that path. And for students, the free tier is almost impossible to ignore. The learning curve is steeper than Lumion, the interface is more technical, the hardware requirements are less forgiving, but the value proposition is absurd, especially if you're interested in learning Unreal Engine later. Think of Twinmotion as the renderer that grows with you, or slowly consumes your free evenings. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The renderer isn't the biggest factor, your model is. Most architects spend more time fixing bad models than rendering them. Messy geometry, poor naming conventions, duplicate elements, materials that make no sense. The renderer can only do so much. It's like buying an expensive coffee machine and putting doo-doo in it. Good results start with clean models, not magical softwares. The same applies to composition. The most common rendering mistake isn't lighting, it's camera placement. Too many architects place a camera at eye level pointed directly at the building and call it a day. Use foreground elements, frame views. Think about composition, because a good image isn't just a render. It's still photography, except your building usually behaves better than actual people. So which one should you use? If you're a student, Twinmotion. It's free, it's powerful, and the skills transfer into Unreal Engine. If you're a Revit architect, Inkscape. The integration alone justifies its choice. If you're producing competition images or marketing visuals, Lumion, the visual quality and asset library makes life easier. If you're exploring interactive experiences, Twinmotion again. If you're managing large BIM projects, Inkscape without hesitation, and honestly, none of these choices are disasters. All three tools are capable. All three can produce excellent work. The mistake isn't choosing the wrong render program. The mistake is spending 6 months watching comparison videos instead of actually learning one. Because eventually the client doesn't care whether the image came from Inkscape, Lumion, or Twinmotion. They care whether the building looks good, and more importantly, whether the thing eventually resembles what gets built. Because unlike AI rendering, reality still has a nasty habit of fact-checking your visuals. Speaking of AI rendering, you can also use it as a post-processing tool on top of your rendering, pushing it just a little more towards reality and preventing the AI from hallucinating. Rendering programs, finding the least annoying workflow. Anyway, I hope I gave you guys some information on the differences between the most used render programs in the AEC industry. You also have programs like Blender, but they are more CGI artist orientated and can get very complex very quickly for what architects and designers need for everyday operations. Thank you for watching. Until next time.